You're not recording sound, are you?
Yeah, but just tell me, yeah.
Okay, this is Soldat Duchesne. His name means great soldier.
Yeah.
And it is because of him that we still have the Laura's stories. When Pa had to go out hunting, he told Ma, he said, look, if the Indians ever come, treat them with respect, treat them with dignity, and just do what they ask you to do. Well, twice he and one of his under chiefs had come with him to the house and pointed to the fire and food, and twice Ma cooked for them. And at the end of Little House on the Prairie, because it's written for children, there's a week-long powwow. And she doesn't go into the details much.
Right.
But all of the Indians were amassing to massacre all the whites. And Soldat Duchesne went to bat for the family, and he said, you do not harm this family. These are good people. If you do, you will have me to deal with.
Huh.
So that's why he's important. That's why I tell this story to people coming in. You treat everybody with respect. This is representing Dr. Tan.
Yeah.
He's a real person. He is a black doctor that was doctoring in the Civil War, and he doctored with the Indian tribes around and around. Now, Jack the dog that never let anybody into their house literally saw him coming or heard him coming and drug him in. They were all down with malaria, the entire family.
And the dog went to get him.
Yeah, and so Jack pulls Dr. Tan in, and he starts feeding him quinine, and because that's what they treated malaria with. So these two men are very, very important. They saved that family, or we wouldn't have the Little House stories.
Where is Jack?
Let me see. He's around here somewhere. Jack. I don't know.
Now, in the end,
Yeah.
where are the Indians in relationship to the
They have to
family?
leave. They have to leave. The government has moved them on, but the government also said the family's got to leave too. What happened?
So they made a deal. The
Yes.
white man leaves, the Indians
But
leave.
at least he left with his life.
Okay, yeah.
They had moved apparently 2 miles too far south, and they were in Indian territory because that's what the government said, and they were tired of being pushed.
Right.
And so anyway, because they were 2 miles or whatever, too far south, that's what the Indians were upset.
Now the entire village was 2 miles south, too far?
No, just Laura's family had come too far south beyond the Kansas territory border.
Oh. Now that the one show they blow up the town, right?
Right, because you've got land shysters that are going to come in and say, oh, well, you know.
So rather than let the shysters have the land, they blew the town up.
They blew the buildings up and they said, okay, you want to take this town, you can have it. And boy, they let it rip.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked when I watched that last series.
Yep, we've got a little clay. This is that Sculpey clay that you can bake till it gets hard. You can drill it, paint it, whatever. This is our grinding stone for the cornmeal. And we have little wooden trays with our fish. These are made out of that same Sculpey clay. You lay a piece of nylon net, like bridal veil type, and that'll make the scales. And this is Mexican. This is black Mexican pottery from Mexico that Jackie brought back. So we've got some bedrolls and the babies, and the mothers are gathering in. Now, in Indian society, the men don't work the fields. They do the hunting and then take care of horses and whatnot. It's the women that
Right.
The 3 sister crops are the corn, beans, and squash, and they plant them all together so one supports the other. Anyway, Tim came over one day in school and he asked Kaylee, he said, Kaylee, what's this baby doing in this tree? And she just takes it right out of his hand, and she said, and she's signing wind and going to sleep and watching their moms. And then she says they hang them in the trees so the wind will rock them back to sleep.
That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was
as long as they can keep an eye on their moms, they were fine, you know. And then the wind would rock them to sleep, and they'd go and they'd be hanging up there in their little beds. That was the purpose of putting them in the tree.
Oh, do you remember what kind of Indians these were? What
these
tribe?
Were Osage Indians.
The Osage.
Out of Oklahoma, yeah.
The Osage Indians.
The Osage Indians. This is a book called The Prairie Primer. It was out of print for a long time, and now it's back in. But it's wonderful because each chapter you can go week by week and teach school from this book. From this whole book takes you through everything. It's loaded with maps.
Now the truth is, you actually used this as a teaching device.
Those are these, yeah.
For these students.
Yeah.
I find that totally amazing that you did that.
Well, we incorporated math and science, every social studies, the map on the wall, traced them out, followed them up and down. Here's Soldat Duchesne's, meaning great soldier, and here's all about the Indian tribe itself, how it interacted with the government and their own economy. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, there's a picture.
Now the truth is that you actually read a lot of these to the students, read it out loud.
Yeah, we read, this was our reading series.
So when they would come into
class.
your class,
Yeah.
you would sit down and read to them?
Yep. And this was the way I got Kaylee to work. Kaylee has Down syndrome. And I said, she loved being read to. And I said, okay, you work for me and I'll work for you.
It was a good deal.
Yeah, because any of her math and counting, whatever, everything was incorporated. Her menu writing, everything was incorporated. And then one year, in 2001, I said, well, what are we going to read this year? And she put the books up there, and I knew she couldn't read at that time. She couldn't even write her name.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we'll make a deal. Everything we read about, we're going to do. It's going to be totally hands-on. Of course, there's not a whole lot going on in here. You learn how to make cheese and things like that. But this one, we followed this as construction manual for that.
And so you were busy this was the prime piece, right?
Yes, and
Was a
we
bit
never
into the house.
realized it was just going to grow this far.
And what did, over the years, did you add all these modules to it?
She was involved in every bit of this.
Kaylee was?
Yes, except for the dangerous stuff.
Oh, I'd like to ask her questions
That
about
one was done later. That one was done.
Yeah.
She got to see it, but it was done after she left school.
Well, that's
But
really
I thought,
great.
well, they've already had the wedding, we might as well have a house. But these were
You ended up with the whole village.
the whole town, yeah.
Little town on the prairie.
Yeah, we started rolling the grocery sacks. You slid them up the back, pop
Right.
out the corners.
Now the
and roll them.
students participated here too, right?
Yes. Now, not all the students in all the classes. This was mostly Kaylee and myself, mostly.
Right.
So it takes 6 grocery sacks to make one course around. So it took us nearly 2 months to get here. And I thought, okay, we're up to November, from beginning of school to November. And I thought, we're going to take a month off. We're continued build, but we're going to take a month off and go into the Pilgrim stories, which
Right.
incorporated the Indian stories. And she'd look at my Pilgrim stories, and she'd see the Eastern Woodlands Longhouse, and then she would point to the teepees out west, and then we had to get the map on the wall.
So she was making
So
connections.
she could get the connections between the Eastern Woodlands and the Western ones. But that's what we did. And then our principal came and asked if she could borrow it. And of course, the stove was not in here at the time. It was
Right.
just 2 beds, a table wedged between the logs, and there was the wagon seat was over here to sit on. And so there was no stove in it. Now when they moved to Walnut Grove and you see the series on TV, then I went ahead and added the stove.
So they used a fireplace.
They used fireplace for her indoor cooking. And this is Osage beadwork, but here's an Osage Indian at the tribe they were there, about the time they were there, circa
Right,
1970.
circa
So this must have been some winter clothes here, because when they came to visit with Laura, all they were was skunk skins. And I mean, they stunk up the house.
But
It
skunk
was
skin would be
awful.
quite outstanding.
Oh,
It had
yes.
its own deodorant with it, didn't
Yeah, but see, that covered up the human smell.
it?
But-
Right, it was for their
Yeah,
purpose.
for their protection.
Yeah.
So, but then, anyway, Laura said that there's Dr. Tan. There he is there, Dr. Tan, from 1825 to 1909.
Well, now Dr. Tan was a black man.
Yes. Yes.
And but he worked with the Indians.
He worked with the Indians because he was accepted by the Indians
By the
better
Indians.
than being accepted by the whites.
Oh,
Unfortunately, but true.
yeah.
Remember, later on in the Civil War, you had some Buffalo soldiers and later after.
Oh, yeah.
But they kind of stayed to themselves because, the whites just didn't want it. And I mean, that was like that right up into the middle of even World War II. We have the Tuskegee Airmen, and we have, what's the group? The 54th Massachusetts with Matthew Broderick's movie called
Right.
Glory.
Right,
Yeah.
Glory. In fact, one of our local residents, former residents of Hunters, Michael Sheets, is in that movie.
Oh, Mike Sheets.
Mike, he'll be here. He's a reenactor.
Oh, okay.
He may be here tomorrow.
Okay. Alrighty.
Now, then we, tell me about this house here.
Alright. This house is Laura and Alonzo's first home. Of course, it
Okay.
wasn't this big, but they didn't have all of the furnishings all at once right off the bat either. Laura and Alonzo got married, but not in church. They went back to Mom and Pa's house for a wedding dinner, and then they went to their house. They later on had another tree claim shanty, and this is part of that where they had, I don't know how far away apart it was, I don't remember, but they were raising sheep. Alonzo built a clock. Not a grandfather, but he built a table-sized clock that he had made. And he wound that every night of his life. And it's in Laura's house in Mansfield, Missouri right now.
Have you had a chance to go to that
Yes,
place?
Yes, I have, and it's wonderful. Their entire house down in Missouri is made, all the wood, all the rock, all of everything except, of course, the glass,
Yeah.
came off of their farm. So, but this is Laura's favorite blue willow. That's her favorite pattern. She's getting ready to.
Blue willow.
This isn't blue willow. We have her little work basket with her yarn, and we have.
And
the
that
kitchen.
stove.
There,
The kitchen
she is
stove.
cooking up a storm. There's a turkey cooking, and there's a roast. She's got cookies, and this is a little piece of meat that's made with that Sculpey clay. So I have to make. This looks more raw. I have to learn how to make it when it looks cooked.
But I want to ask you a very important thing. Where's the bathroom?
Well, they have chamber pots underneath, and there must have been an outhouse out there somewhere.
Yeah. So when you
So we have two dry sinks, one that has the well on, no, I don't think they had a well on the inside, but I put it in. Almanzo had done 2 sets of shelves and cupboards. He handmade those for her, for the pantry. And where you see the back door, by rights should be all window. And she would take her dish pans on that countertop in the back and do her dishes. So, I kind of put it back. And this is the courting buggy. This is Almanzo's favorite breed of horses, were the Morgans. This is Nero, his